Hannah, do you want to just display the agenda just so everyone can kind of see what the folks online that are viewing can see what we're going to be focusing on today? Thank you. So it looks like we will be starting with Article. We've got lots of stuff to talk about today. We have Article 24, the MOAs 2, 9, 13, 16, 20, 21. And then we have a little break and then an opportunity for you guys to go over Articles 23 and 17, and then a lunch break and a caucus. And then we'll come back and kind of end our time with Michelle's financial presentation. Is there anything different that we need to adjust, Debbie or Rob?
No, I think we're on target here.
Okay, awesome. Yep. We'll go ahead and get started with Article 24 then.
Okay, Article 24. Good morning, everybody. Article 24 is grievance. We really, I think, are fairly in alignment on this article. I think the only difference at all is in A2. Again, I lose track of what's current and what's new and all of that stuff. It's the use of days that we're talking about here in the number. So here we're talking about the initial filing period for a grievance. We have a new definition of days down in 3. That definition of days is district business days. And so for us, we feel like we don't need then up in 2 to use either calendar days or district business days, because if we just use days, then that word is defined down in 3. And we feel like the correct number there is 20. 20 district business days is effectively a month. It's effectively 30 calendar days. And so we think that's the accurate reflection of kind of that initial grievance timeline. Basically, if something happens, you have a month to file a grievance, which we feel like is a sufficient amount of time to discover that situation and make that decision. So that's the reason for our proposal there. Again, just using days everywhere instead of specifying, since we've got that kind of controlling definition in 3.
Okay, that makes sense.
Great. Okay, we then started taking a look at the various MOUs attached to this contract. MOA, MOU. We've got the cell phone, what's now an MOU. It's been in place for a while, I think. And so it's a compensation piece. So for us, we feel like moving that into the contract is the way to go. So our proposal is to move it into Article 10 eventually. That's the wages article. And I think then we wouldn't need much of this language, because a lot of that language is there because it's an MOU. So we would only have the specification there that if you're identified by the district as requiring mobile contact during your assigned workday, then that's what the stipend is, it's the current amount. And then you see that little piece that we're also proposing to keep halfway in that lower paragraph. Classified employees who are identified as eligible for the cell phone stipend but choose not to utilize a personal cell phone will be provided with an alternative means of contact by the district, and then you would not get the stipend. So if you took a district phone, you would just use that. Well, you're not going to get a stipend because the stipend's associated with personal cell phone usage. So all of this is current. It just happens to be an MOU, but we feel because it's been ongoing and it is a compensation piece that we might as well just get rid of the MOU, but move that into Article 10.
And it's called cell phone stipend.
Correct. Other questions on that one?
I mean, I can't think of anything yet. Debbie, anyone else?
No, we'll look at it and we'll talk about it.
Okay. Next. This is our MOA on, excuse me, on reemployment of retired employees. It changed over time as we got changes to the law. It's a little bit of a fluid situation. The current law is set to expire in 2024. So just as by way of context, the law changed. It used to be if you retired under PERS, you couldn't work more than 1,000 some odd hours in a year, or you'd lose your PERS benefits. The legislature changed the law and gave a 5-year window of time where people could retire but work completely full time. And so that necessitated changes in our MOA as to how we handle post-retirement employment. We're proposing to keep this in an MOU because we don't know if the legislature is going to extend that window, whether it's going to revert back to the max of half-time employment being allowable for our retirees. So we're just proposing to keep this until the end of this next contract. No changes.
So do you have to state anything in there where it has to, like, if the law changes, then it just reverts to the law supersedes this?
Yeah, I mean, I felt safe because that current statute's in effect through 2024.
Okay.
And
Okay.
since our end date of this MOU would be June 30th, 2024, it felt kind of safe. Otherwise, I would suggest that, Debbie, but I felt like because that's a defined time period right now, I think we're okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like the savings clause would kick in anyway, you know?
Yeah, I agree. So that's retired employees. We didn't really know quite what to do with this one, and maybe my team can remind me. We struggled to find where we were still using interns. Kana or Saide, did we discover any scenarios where we were actually using folks that fell under this MOA?
Not currently. We had used this in the past, but in talking with our college and career tech ed administrators, they felt that this would be a good one to continue because there is a hope that we would have developed some programs potentially for students who want to pursue internships, and then we would have this to have our own HSD grads that are working through programs through maybe facilities or maintenance or such.
Okay, so may be useful in the future. So we're not proposing to change any of the terms of this current MOA. It talks about bargaining unit members, not being displaced or impacted by the hiring of interns, and a couple of other protections. So all we've proposed to do is change the dates and leave that MOA in place.
Do we need to look at the language on, let's see, the fourth section down where it says Portland Community College has identified students? Or do we need to add something about our own students?
That's a good question. Kana, is that specific reference to PCC still relevant?
That was that one-time situation where it was brought forward, and it happened to be PCC students who wanted to intern in our facilities maintenance department.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Melody. I think that there is a desire to have that partnership with PCC because that's typically where we do a lot of our trades, partnerships. So
Right.
I don't know if we would be updating that language, but I think if we needed to, we could. I think this is, we just felt like it was important because there's been talk about there's been a lot of talk about the need for growing our own in career tech ed and trades positions for our students. So
Well, yeah, no, I agree, but I just didn't know if we wanted to discuss not taking out Portland Community College, but adding students of Hillsborough School District as potential interns. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a good point, Melody. I don't know that that sentence is really doing us, serving any purpose here. You know what I mean? Because it's just sort of stating something. DCC has identified students who could gain on the job experience. Okay, great. That
Right.
doesn't really add much to the MOU, right?
Okay. Yeah, I just remember when this MOU was put into place, it was because of Portland Community College and the
Gotcha.
relationship. And I believe it was renewed at one point as well, because we continued that relationship. But if we don't need to, if we're still, okay with, it's not exclusively an intern for Portland Community College, that it includes other interns then, or other programs.
yeah, I certainly think we could delete that language. It's not fully bearing on what we're kind of thinking forward around our internships for our HSD students.
I agree.
Well, think about it when you guys are in caucus, and we'll think about it too. And maybe we'll, if we can't think of a reason why we want that paragraph in it, maybe we'll bounce it back to you guys with that paragraph struck.
Okay, that sounds good.
Cool.
Last MOU, summer bargaining work. Again, we've not proposed any change. It didn't seem like something to move into the CBA. It's pretty detailed. So we're just proposing a new effective date. Otherwise, retaining that language. Questions on that one?
Melody, you have your hand raised. Is that for the former one or is that for this one too?
That was for the former one.
Okay, no worries. I just want,
The hand goes down automatically, so I forgot.
it's not like real life, the hand goes down.
Yeah. Well, in Google it is, so, okay, no, sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
Are we just keeping this as a MOU because there's no place to really put it in the contract? Is
Yeah,
that,
I mean, it touches on a variety of different articles.
so there's there's really no way to.
It just didn't feel like
Fit it in.
a seamless place to put it in. So that's why we're suggesting it just stay as an MOU.
Gotcha.
Okay, we'll take a little closer look at it today.
Okay. I think we're not quite ready on Article 2, we've discovered. So we would go to Article 9 next. Working off your last proposal, and we really had a lot of discussion as a team here, how we want to handle this lunch breaks issue. And really B through F all deal with employee lunch breaks. And our first priority is that employees get their lunch break and get it when it's scheduled, or as close to that as possible. I think that's your priority too. You had proposed G, lunch breaks shall not be shifted more than 60 minutes from their original start time. And so we agree the priority should be having people take their lunch. And so if you follow kind of the chain of events through the various provisions there, you get to F. And F is really the one that contemplates if there's work going on and people aren't able to take their scheduled lunch. And currently what it says is, as a supervisor, you have two options. You either pay the person because they didn't get their lunch, or you give them an equivalent amount of time off somewhere in the workday. And we've talked about the fact that telling somebody, hey, leave at 3 o'clock instead of 3:30 is not really a suitable replacement for them not getting their lunch that day. I mean, it doesn't serve the purpose of getting them a break in the middle of the day so they can eat. So we tried to incorporate your concept of the 60 minutes up into this. And really what it would leave is a scenario where if something's going on and an employee's not able to take their lunch at the scheduled time, one of two things happens. Either things are so chaotic that day they simply get paid for that missed lunchtime. We want that to be the exception, not the rule. Or the supervisor will shift their lunch period or have their lunch break shifted by not more than 60 minutes from its original start time. So we're trying to work that 60-minute concept that you guys proposed up into this. So if I was supposed to take my lunch at 11:30 and all hell's breaking loose, I've got to cover stuff, then I'm going to take my lunch somewhere in that 1 hour window from 11:30. And if that's just impossible, then I'm compensated for missing that. But what it removes is the possibility that the supervisor could say, yeah, you're not able to take your lunch today, so just, leave at 3 o'clock instead of 3:30.
Okay, I don't know if there's questions on my team. It looks like you guys are that we've accepted the comma or, which I think will help clarify this.
Okay.
Is that right? I see. It looks like it's italicized on F.
I have a question about this one. So for being compensated at the hourly rate, how will that work for full-time employees? Because they're essentially, if they skip their lunch break, they're essentially working overtime.
That's a good question. That piece would be at the overtime rate if it was over 40 hours in a week. And again, really, as what we've been talking about, and I don't know if any of our supervisors want to chime in, but really our goal here is to make sure people get their lunch.
Brian, Justin had to step away
Okay.
to take care of a situation, but he pointed out when we were in our caucus, just the value of taking care of your staff and making sure that they are eating and taking care of themselves. Because we all want to just, keep working and keep going forward, but really around that culture of care about making sure that people are eating, stopping, and taking that break that they're afforded. Sarah, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just have had several instances where people either permanently or temporarily for a day or whatever want to actually, it's their choice. Like they say, hey, I would like to skip lunch today so that I can leave early. And we also don't, we don't want that because again, the point is to take a break and take care of yourself. And that's sort of the opposite scenario of like, oh my gosh, everything's so busy that I need you to work through your lunch. And so we don't want it to be written in the contract in a way that encourages that either.
And I think what Sarah's talking about, we want to make sure we're adhering to wage and hour law. And I don't think that the wage and hour law really contemplates a permanent or semi-permanent scenario where people are agreeing to not have lunch and in order to gain the ability to leave, 30 minutes early. Really what wage and hour law says is you need to take lunch. And it's only if there's just this like unusual course of business, something's happening, that lunch should be bypassed and paid instead. So as Sarah's saying, some people want to skip lunch to alter their schedule. And we don't want that really to be an option because we want to adhere to the law. But even more importantly, we want people to have a point kind of mid-shift where they can eat and sit down and not be dealing with things. So that's a different facet of it.
Okay, so are we saying that that you're not going to allow that? Is that what you're saying? Like you're not going to allow employees to say, I'm going to not skip my lunch and because I got to leave a half hour early. Is that what?
Yeah, what I would rather in those situations, Debbie, is that the employee and the supervisor figure out some other kind of flex time type of an arrangement.
Right.
If you have a special need today, like I got to pick up my child or something, my parent needs help with something, I need to leave 30 minutes early, then the better course of action would be to like, okay, we'll come in 30 minutes early, or tomorrow stay 30 minutes late or something like that instead of the bypassing lunch.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion as well, not to skip the lunch. Okay, I was just making sure I was hearing her correctly.
Yeah,
Kira's point's valid. And if circumstances dictate that, that somebody needs to work through their lunch and that pushes them into overtime, then the overtime, provisions would apply.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. So hopefully we're kind of getting at a variety of interests here. And I think it results in better language and more guidance for our supervisors to know that if you're going to be changing people's lunch break around, you've got this 60-minute window. And after that, it's not really a lunch break anymore. And so you just need to pay them. So that's our goal.
And if that happens a lot, then obviously somebody's gonna be asking questions as to why we're paying why is payroll paying overtime all the time on these. So I think that's good on both sides. It kind of keeps the, the supervisors a little bit more holds them a little bit more accountable, which, I feel kind of needs to be done for some, not everybody. Not everybody's like that. I'm not saying everybody.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's helpful to have as clear rules and expectations as we can have. That helps everybody, I think. Like Sarah said, I mean, we've had situations, not necessarily in this district, but where people have said, I want to bundle all of my breaks and lunch together and leave, like an hour early or something like that. And that's really defeating the purpose of that portion of the wage and hour law, which is designed to give people time off within their shift, so we just need to be mindful of that. Other questions on this article?
Can't think of any for now.
Okay. Article 13, we maintained our proposal here to add Juneteenth as a paid holiday for our 12-monthers. Right now our contract divides into two categories, 12-month and less than 12-month, and it does differentiate. 12-month clearly get more paid holidays. I think that has long been a benefit, just like 12-monthers getting paid vacation. It's a benefit for people who work on that full year schedule. That and I know we've got other categories of 11-month and then maybe 10-month, but for us, adding Juneteenth for less than 12 months, if we're thinking about our school year employees, it doesn't work because that work year may or may not end even before Juneteenth. And then if we're adding it for, a separate class of employees, 10-month or 11-month, then it's almost like we'd be creating a new category here and really significantly shifting how this article is designed to divide people into either the less than 12-month category or the 12-month, category. And if we add a paid holiday for less than 12-monthers, it does produce a cost. And so we've been mindful of that as well. So I think the intention would be to have it as a non-contract day to respect the holiday, but not to have it as a paid holiday. And that, again, is what we're doing, or what we've got proposed on the table for licensed employees. So it would be current language under our proposal for the less than 12-monthers, and it would add Juneteenth as a holiday for the 12-month employees. Everything else in this article would remain the same. Questions on that one?
Friday after Thanksgiving is also a non-contract day, right?
Correct. And that's currently the case. So that's not, just to be clear, that was a proposed add by your team so that we're not taking off a holiday that currently exists. We are just designating we've not accepted a proposal. So just want to make that clear for anyone watching. We're not proposing to remove a holiday.
And we've batted this one around a little bit. A lot has been said about it. I don't know if we need to say more now.
Okay.
I don't know if my team agrees.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay. Moving on to 16, we've gone kind of a different direction at this after a lot of discussion. between the parties on reclass, and this idea of having, you know, kind of this gatekeeping function that right now it's two people to look at it and say, is this actually a reclass request? Okay, if it is, we're going to send it to the whole committee. So, you know, our discussion at the table up to this point has been, you know, does it make sense to have a 2-person kind of subcommittee? You know, what if the district was always saying, no, I don't think it meets the requirements? Would that somehow block all reclass requests? So you had proposed, in the event that a group of employees working in the same job class is requesting, it always goes to the committee. So we've gone a slightly different direction, see if this works for you. We're proposing to eliminate that subcommittee altogether that performs that gatekeeping function, and instead have the reclass request sent to all members of the reclass committee. They wouldn't necessarily meet in person on the merits of the reclass request. They would first determine whether or not it actually met the definition of a reclassification based on our predetermined requirements. So I think one key piece of this is to have kind of a checklist, a predetermined checklist that will be utilized. And then if it does, the committee would review it and either grant or deny the reclass. Or if the committee decided it didn't even meet those threshold requirements, I suppose it would just deny it on those grounds. So our intent here is to take the pressure off of, or take away that, you know, the potential for 2 people just making that decision at the beginning, and instead just directing these things to the reclassification committee.
Brian, Melody has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Melody, didn't see that.
That's okay, just went up. So before it had to be both parties in the subcommittee. We don't have, if there's 6 people on the big committee, do you have a number in mind that has to determine that it meets it? And the predetermined requirements, are those the predetermined requirements that HR has set forth, or is this something that has to be built?
Well, I don't know if it exists now. Saide could probably tell us if, I mean, my thinking would be the union and the district would agree on what kind of those predetermined requirements look like. And then I suppose if it came down, you know, my hope always, Melody, is that the people on the committee have kind of a common understanding of whether something is really a reclass request or not. And so hopefully it wouldn't come down to kind of a split decision too often. But I guess technically speaking, I guess the reclass committee would kind of vote to decide whether to, I mean, I guess this, my same question would be, right, we've had this existing 3-and-3 committee that considered, you know, if a reclass was moved on to the committee, that committee had to make a decision whether to grant it or not, right? And so it's using some decision-making process. I think that would be the same in deciding whether it even met the requirements of a reclass to begin with. Saide, do you have any other input you want to throw in there?
Yeah, so the predetermined requirements don't exist currently. That was a proposal from the previous time we met, which was to draft that collaboratively and come up with a checklist, including evidence by. So within that application, we can point to the areas that are evidence of the predetermined requirements. And currently, a reclass is approved or denied based on majority. So it would be a 4-2 majority that would determine that the application meets the minimum requirement to move forward and actually hold a meeting. That's the thought.
Knowing that it does take a little bit to get all of those people kind of, you know, together in one place to meet, I think our conceptually what we were thinking is, okay, a reclass request comes in. First of all, it gets sent electronically to all people on the committee, and each person then sort of chimes in with, yeah, it looks like this meets the criteria to be a valid request. or no, I don't think it does. And then assuming the answer is yes, it does, then you convene the committee to kind of go into the merits of it. But really what it's designed to do is, I guess, take the pressure off of just two people making that initial decision and saying the committee's just going to make a two-part decision. Does this state a valid reclass request? And if so, are we granting the reclassification?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think it's
thank you.
I think it's an interesting idea. We'll take a look at it. I mean, I could, and I'll talk about this with my team. I mean, it would probably make sense for the committee to like, and this could potentially end up in this, where the committee maybe meets in the next, I don't know, 3 to 6 months or something. Just get together and make sure that the committee has met and has sort of hammered out what those predetermined, things are.
I agree. I mean, I think it makes sense. And then as you have changes in committee membership, I think it always makes sense for the group to be reviewing those kind of criteria for a valid reclass request, making sure everybody's on the same page. It's kind of probably an ongoing thing.
Yep. All right, unless my team has more, we appreciate your guys' thoughtfulness on this.
Sure.
We're knocking them out.
We're getting through them. Transportation. Yeah, I'm gonna have Carol talk a little bit about this. We're still stuck, honestly, on this. I mean, I appreciate you guys came back with a creative twist on this last time, and it was consistent with what I've been saying. That is, our first goal is to offer the work to people who have signed up when we're talking summer work, before we outsource that. That still is the case. So I see the logic in the proposal that you guys made. I think our concern, and I'm gonna have Carol talk a little bit more about this, is that summer, the nature of that summer work, especially in our current environment, is somewhat chaotic and unpredictable. And so it doesn't necessarily all get channeled through transportation in an organized way where Carol or somebody else can be collecting all of that work and then, dispersing it out to folks who have signed up. And Carol, I don't know if there's anything more you can say about that, about some of the problems that we saw of kind of making a contractual provision that work would first be offered to the people who have signed up.
I mean, historically, I am very much pro for our drivers to do the work. But my limitations are those who want to work the summer, one. But two, what's actually coming through my wheelhouse? I don't control the whole district. So if it comes through me, then yes, it's going to go out. But I think also people need to know that when we put out the summer work, please sign up. I mean, there's a category where you can sign up that all you want to do is trips, and we create a special summer trip pick list. Last summer, we actually had 2 people on that list. Plus then we ran into the problem of, those who are driving routes, you can't drive a route and do a trip that all is happening at the same time. But bottom line is that the feasibility of us being able to do this, and for me to say, yes, it's in the contract, we're 100% going to follow this, it's not realistic. We don't have the bandwidth or the manpower. You guys know me well enough, especially Debbie who works here, that, yes, if we have summer work, our staff is going to do it to the best of our abilities. But like Brian was saying, we don't control everything that comes through. So in order for me or us as a department to take that on, that's not something that's feasible for us to do.
Thanks, Carol. And I think that a big part of our thinking has been that, part of the problem was created last summer when we had some real significant differences in the amount and type of summer work That may continue this summer. I don't know how long that's going to be into the future where you've got a dramatic shift or addition of summer programs. So it is kind of a fluid situation right now. So writing contract language around it is a little bit challenging because of that dynamic. So I guess we're asking, I understand the issue and understand the proposal you made last time and why. I think we're asking, I guess, in a way for you guys to trust us on this one, that, you know, the goal is to have that work done by our internal folks. They're a known quantity. There are no students, they know the district. So our goal is to use them when we can. And it will be, you know, a number of these factors that come into play if they don't get used, including availability of our own drivers, but also how that work is being originated. Happy to answer questions on that one.
Yeah, I don't think we have any questions right now. I think we'll go back to the team and
Okay.
discuss that further.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, last one, I believe, Article 21, professional improvement. Just by way of a recap, and if you can scroll back up to the top, just to recap things, we had previously agreed to increase that fund from 30,000 to 40,000. We are really in favor of our classified employees pursuing professional improvement, regardless, you know, whether it's to become more proficient at your current job, whether it's another job that you're looking at. We're an educational entity, so people continuing education, very important. So increasing that amount, increasing the per employee amount also. The one difference that we still had was in C. We have got this kind of growing laundry list of, hey, you might have these things that come up during your regular workday, and here are the conditions that apply to whether or not you could pursue them. And we were going back and forth on adding class to that list. So under this proposal, we're simply proposing to do away with the list and say an employee wanting to engage in professional improvement related to their work assignment during their regular work hours, you know, it would be contingent on these three factors. So instead of growing the list, we're proposing just a catch-all term, which I suppose could include class. But I think, Sarah, was it you that was saying you've had two kind of distinctly different kind of class requests, and one of them tends to work and one of them tends not to, right?
Yeah, I have an employee right now who's taking a Spanish class, which obviously will help, you know, her in her work with us. And it's like a leave 15 minutes early a day a week or something like that for a set amount of time. Easy peasy, right? We can make that work and flex time or whatever we need to do. But we have another person who had some day classes and needed to be gone per semester, maybe, you know, 2 full days for the semester. And then at the second semester, the schedule would change. And so that really wasn't possible because then they're not really working their job. So those are 2 examples of classes, and one could work and one couldn't just because of the time commitment.
Yeah, thank you. So, you know, somebody theoretically could, as part of Section C, request leave or time for a class, not just a workshop or a conference or what have you, but it would just flow through the same decision-making process. We added or human resources to approval of the supervisor, because if somebody's requesting leave, like if somebody was requesting a day off a week or a month, or even like, I need to take a series of days off because I want to go to this conference, any leave does require the approval of human resources. It goes across Saide's desk. So a leave situation would involve human resources. So we added that into the mix. Questions on that one?
I'm just trying to figure out, it says and or human resources. Which is it?
Well, because it depends is the answer. It depends on what's being requested. If it's just the 15 minutes early part, I don't know, Saide, would that one need to come across human resources desk?
No, so that's a flex sort of situation that we talked about earlier. If it's a conference and the supervisor knows about it, in some cases, the supervisor is promoting the conference because it enriches an employee's current position and ability to support students. It would go through professional improvement in our absentee ESS system. But if it's a class, it would go across my desk because they're actually asking for days off, multiple days off over the course of a semester or several months. And that would be an HR decision.
So that's why we've got the and/or, Debbie, because it just kind of depends on the nature of what's being requested.
So if it went across the human resources desk or your desk, say, what's the criteria that's going to be determined if it's approved or not? Is it going to be if there's an approved sub for every day, or how's that going to work? What would that look like?
It's the same criteria that we use for all leave of absences. And so when anyone requests a leave of absence, there's a series of reasons why it's approved or denied. And so it's the same list of criteria, whether it's the impact it has on instruction, operations, whether it's a one-time thing. Patricia, who processes all of those leaves, puts it in the leave request when it's approved or denied. So it would follow the same system that we have currently.
So why include it in here then? So say that somebody requests the time off, it's approved by the supervisor, they would have to get you to sign off on it anyway, right?
And you would squash it, right? Because I mean, like the
Okay,
LOAs.
Debbie, I think there's a misunderstanding that I squash things. I'd like to clarify for the record that is not the case. So I just want to put it out there for the record. I do not squash things. I know it comes across as though I do, based on today's comment and our comment last time we met, but that is not the case. We have a criteria. Basically, we have 1,400 employees and we have to create some level of consistency among all of our employees. So it's based on criteria. That's it.
Yeah, I think, with that, adding human resources was simply to reflect the fact that for some types of requests, that was a layer that would be applied. I mean, to be completely transparent, we'd also be fine with current contract language, which kept a current list, did not add class, and did not add human resources. We were trying to facilitate your team's desire to have class as potentially a scenario that would apply under Section C. And really, for it to apply, you're going to have a human resources lens that will be necessary most of the time. I mean, just to be completely transparent, going back to Sarah's examples, it probably would be really rare that the person who says, like, I need every Monday off because I'm taking a class this semester, it's pretty rare that would be approved, just to be quite honest, because you'd have to find a sub every Monday. And so the likelihood of that is small. The person who says, I need to leave 15 minutes in order to get to a class, that one's probably much more feasible, much more likely to be approved. So it's just going to depend on the circumstances, but especially in our current environment with lack of subs, while we applaud the ongoing professional improvement, the job's got to come first. It was just like when we were talking about the firefighting and things like that. We need our employees to be working. So that's going to be probably the number one factor, unless time can be flexed in some way. But we were trying to have a mechanism here where class could be part of the consideration. And that's why we propose to do away with the list and just refer to professional improvement in general.
Okay, we'll take a look at it as a team.
Okay. I think if there are no other questions, I believe that's all of the pieces that we were bringing today.
So what's next? Were we gonna like break and then go into economics, or?
We were gonna, I'm sorry, I think you missed that when we went through the agenda. We were gonna take a little break and then have you guys come back and present your two articles. And then we'd take a lunch break, and after lunch break, we would be presenting our financials.
Right, I
Okay.
think Michelle's kind of planning on a 1 o'clock for economics.
Sorry, I'm laughing because Sierra and Denise's cats are quite festive today.
I haven't seen Denise's cats. You got the background.
She just walked, the cat walked right in front of her. So does that work for you guys if we go ahead and take a brief break, and then we can come back and have you present your 2 articles?
Sure.
That works fine.
Okay, what are you thinking, Kana, or anybody, Debbie, Rob, when do you want to come back and do that?
Yeah, I would defer to Debbie, Rob, or Melody.
So just take a short break and then come back and then present, and then we'll do the lunch break probably. I don't know, what do we do, a 15-minute break?
Seems fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're
Or do
basically
we want to
prepared,
stand
so.
schedule and come back at 11:15? It's up to whoever wants to.
I think if it works for people, let's just take 15 minutes and you guys
Okay.
present. And if that puts us into lunch break a little earlier than scheduled, I doubt anybody will be too disappointed by that. If that works.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay,
We'll come
sounds
back
good.
at about 11:10.
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay, going by 11:10.
Thanks.
Okay, Hannah, does our team need to meet, or are we just taking a break here?
I think we all can just take a break.
Okay, good deal. I'm just gonna stay on. I'm not gonna sign off then. I'm just gonna turn my camera off on this.
Yeah, you can just, that sounds good.
All right, see you guys in a few.
Yep.
Debbie will be right back.
And Justin had to step out for the rest of the time to take care of some needs at his school.
Sorry.
All right, I think we're all here.
Rob, let me know when you're ready.
I think we're ready. You want to bring up 17? Okay. So for Article 17 under A1B, we were looking to so for this one, we wanted to add original under B, a reduction of more than 30 minutes of bargaining unit members' original total assigned work time, and then strike in any one contract year. Our goal here is to kind of prevent the 30-minute creep that we've seen to some people's schedules without triggering bumping. We feel like that kind of sends management, some supervisors, the wrong message. So we were looking to kind of go with the original assigned work time, and it still gives you guys some flexibility to adjust by 30 minutes. But it seems like the way it's worded right now, sometimes every, that there's the kind of a slow march down by 30 minutes, in sort of 30-minute increments per year. I don't know if my team wants to articulate that any better than I just did.
No, I think you said it, Rob. It's pretty much just when somebody that was hired pre-2007, they only have to work 6 hours to get 100% of the benefit level. But the way some of the district looks at it is that they can be taken down to 6 hours. But by the current contract language, it's in half-hour increments. They can only be taken down a half hour or trigger bump benefits, a reduction in the benefit level. Well, we've had a couple of members approach us and with their hours were reduced, and they were told, well, I can reduce them another 30 minutes next year. And they just feel like, not valued with that because, they could just keep getting their hours reduced. Well, they were hired before some of their coworkers that can only go down to 7 hours, but they can be taken down to 6 hours. So it's just not, it's not showing some of our more senior employees that they're valued and their time and dedication by reducing them down below newer employees. So again, to stop that slow 30-minute walk down to a benefit level is why we presented this language.
Just not really on this topic, but just in general, is this a first presentation of this article?
Yes.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better because otherwise I had absolutely no recollection of an exchange on this one before. So now I feel a little bit better. Thank you.
Yep. I had to remind myself as I was presenting it.
Hey, Melody, the situation you're talking about, that's because that person hired pre-2007, that they're locked into that different proration on insurance. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. They're on tier 1 of our insurance levels, whereas post 2007 is on tier 2.
Right. Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Sorry, one more question. Melody,
no
do you see that happening like person specific or as a group? Like I know there's been times in this district's history where like a decision was made. I remember a specific one where a category of food service employees were being shifted universally from 7.5 hours to 7 hours or something like that. Are you talking about situations where it's specific to a given person and their hours are getting shifted down, but not part of a kind of like a category wide move?
No, I'm talking individuals, because the bus drivers, there's a category of the bus drivers that got reduced down to half an hour. The nutrition services reduced to half an hour. I'm talking about when the schools get their staffing numbers and they have to decide allocations, and they've got employees, they've got to reduce hours.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about, is that, and it's not necessarily that they're taking them down an hour in 1 year, because we have language for that. This is the one where every year their hours are being reduced down to benefit level, or the threat is given there that, well, you know, I can do it or expect it. So.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so if there's no more questions, maybe we can move on to 23.
So that's the only piece of Article 17, Rob?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, thanks.
So I feel like we're really close with this. You know, we've kind of accepted moving letters of direction up into the top category. You know, it's always interesting talking about a list or talking about sort of a narrative, but we're willing to let that go. I guess the only real thing we wanted to add here, and you know, and partially I apologize because I think this is something that's, you know, come up fairly recently. You know, for a new edition, to just give you guys to think about it. We're wondering if under C we could add the district will notify the employee and union when any meeting is scheduled. There's been times where where some of our members have felt like they weren't communicated to about a meeting or a discipline issue. And in some ways we feel like this would, you know, sort of give both parties, you know, knowledge of these kinds of things going on. If we got a notification, I mean, it would still be up to the employee whether or not that they wanted to like exercise their wine garden rights and have somebody present in the meeting. But I feel like if at least the union was notified of it, that it would eliminate some of the confusion about whether or not a meeting had happened or whether or not a disciplinary, you know, issue is going on. I don't know if Debbie or Melody or anybody else wants to speak.
It's just, oh, sorry, Debbie, go ahead. Okay. It's just, if the union got copies of meeting notices and other communications with, you know, discipline being issued and communication of meetings, then we can't have, there won't be the issue of, well, I didn't receive that. I know that excuse is, or that reason is not given very often, but I'd like to be able to share with the member and reach out to the member and talk to them about what to expect in this meeting or whatever meeting they're going into, and ask them if they would like representation in that meeting. Many do not know that because they're not members, that they still have the right to be represented in these meetings. We represent all members of the bargaining unit, not just paid members. So if we have the ability to know that there's a meeting coming up, then we have the ability to reach out and explain their rights as a member of the bargaining unit to them.
I had a question or more like a comment, but Debbie, I didn't know if you had something that you were adding.
No, she added it, and I do want to say that most of the time, I mean, there are times that SAIDI does send courtesy emails to let me know. But there has been a couple that haven't. And then what happens is they come to us after the fact, like either after their the employment has ended, or that there's, that there's an issue that we could have problem solved beforehand, maybe, and I didn't know about it. It's very few and far between, but I'd like to at least see some consistency on that. But I do appreciate being notified so that I can reach out to somebody.
Do you guys see any issue? Every once in a while, you have somebody who just doesn't even want anybody else to know that they're having a discipline situation or something's going on. And, the district I think this district's pretty good about making sure people know, like, you are entitled to a union representative if you want to bring one. So, but what about those folks who just sort of like, yeah, I did something, I'm embarrassed about it, or I just don't feel like having anybody know my business, even the union. Do you see any place for that?
We did have that conversation because I have heard that before. However, with HCU being the exclusive representative for the district for all classified employees, it helps us track different things too when we get these notices. If we call them up and they say I don't want any representation, okay, fine. Reach out to us in the future if you would like some, or if you'd like some help, or you have any questions. We don't push, we don't pressure. We just want to be able to track what's happening and to allow, because we do get a lot of people after the fact or at the 11th hour of a discipline, like, hey, I didn't know how to get a hold of you, or, which we're not hiding, but I just like to make sure that, they know that they have the right to reach out to us. And that if they don't, then at least we're reaching out and saying, hey, if we're here, if you need us, and if they say I don't want any help, okay.
It's extra tricky with Janice too.
Sure.
Because I think that some people, who aren't actual like physical HCU members might think that they don't have the same rights that a non-member does. We know that they do.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I do understand the angle that you guys come at it from. I definitely do. I also understand that there's some folks, particularly if they chose not to be a member, who might say to the district, like, I don't want the union to know that I did X, Y, or Z, or that I'm getting disciplined, or I don't want anybody to know. So, it's like finding that balance. Do we try and accommodate the people? I get it. Those same people then might later say, well, union, why aren't you helping me? So like, we didn't even know about it. So I'm just trying to factor in, to how much weight we should put on people's desire to have, a level of privacy if they don't want anyone else to know about a situation. It's tricky because there are a variety of interests at play there. So just how to balance that. Saidi, I don't know, when you're dealing with one of these situations, can you maybe just talk a little bit about what you do or what you have supervisors do to make sure folks know that they have access to the union?
Sure. When we meet with employees for due process, the meeting notice that employees receive states in the notice that there's a contract agreement between HSD and HCU. They have a right to union representation for the purpose of observation and advice at the meeting. And it's the employee's responsibility to reach out to the union for that support. We've talked about making sure those notices get to the employee with at least 24-hour notice, so they have time to reach out and seek union representation. And for those that explicitly ask for no union representation, I've spoken to our administrators about getting that in writing. So having them sign off something saying they waive their right to having a union representative present, or they do not wish to have a union representative present, so we could have it in writing. for future reference. So those are the two things. Typically, when I'm meeting with someone, Debbie alluded to the fact I do send a courtesy notice, the same notice that goes to the employee. I send it to Debbie for her information. And if they tell me that they don't want a union representative, I'll let Debbie know they don't want union representation, and she may not get the notice, but that's my form of communication with her. But typically when it gets to my level, it's fairly serious. So most people want union representation.
I have a question for Saida. When somebody, so you do receive a signature from people when they refuse union representation, right? Is that what you were saying?
I said, what I said was I encourage the supervisors, the administrators to get something in writing when they say they do not wish to have a union representative present.
Okay.
Because I don't meet with every single employee on disciplinary matters. That's really left up to our administrators.
Right. So is that signature for that situation only, or is that bind them for, oh,
It's
you didn't
just
want
for-
them
it's
last
just-
time, why do you want them
It's
this
just for
time?
that situation, because we've had employees do that, request no union representation for a certain situation, and then later on wanting union representation. And so we have examples of those.
So if they have a due process meeting, I don't want a union rep, and then they come back for the next meeting, oh wait, now I need a union rep. You're not holding that due process signature for the entire situation. Every meeting they have to sign off.
That's correct.
Okay. Debbie had something to say. She's
Yeah, no, this procedure,
You muted yourself, Debbie.
that communication that Saidi was explaining is well known in transportation. I think that's where I see it the most consistent is in that department. So I think it'd be good to kind of somehow get that out to other administrators that that's kind of the procedure if they deny. There are some that do it, that'll let us know. But if they sign it in writing, then it's we're covered as well. But Carol does that, and her supervisors do that every time. So that does help us. It helps me, and I appreciate that. So.
And I'm just curious, Saida. Yeah, I mean, Melody was talking about a signature. Is it always like that, or is it? I mean, I could visualize a supervisor sending an email and just saying, "Hey, so just so you know," verifying that you don't want union rep, and maybe having the person respond to that.
Yeah, typically it's in person because they're showing up to the meeting without a representative, and because we don't reach out to the union necessarily and say, hey, you need to talk to this person. If they're not showing up to a meeting with a representative, we let them know that they need to sign something so that we can have the meeting and move forward. They verbalize it, but we have them put it in writing. So it's as simple as just saying they do not wish to have union representation, date it and sign it.
Okay, I just wanted to understand what the procedure was a little better.
Carol Hatfield had her hand raised. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask a question, but I think Debbie clarified it is that because I thought that anytime there was a meeting like a discipline or due process, we were required to send out the meeting notice, which we also then send to HCU. So I guess I was just trying to get my head wrapped around a situation that you wouldn't already be notified. But I think Debbie, you may have clarified that, just that I think that it's just sort of in transportation. We just are careful about giving you a heads up.
Yeah, and I think that maybe some of the, I can't say that I don't believe the other admin is doing that on purpose. I think that maybe they just don't know, what, I just think it'd be helpful if they knew. I don't know where we could add that or do whatever, but yeah, no, it's in 99 point something percent of the time I get them. But there is one, and I'll touch base with Saidi on this on another note. I'm just curious with one other person, but yeah, so we're hopefully that clarified it.
Okay, so it sounds like, at least for now, you guys will probably have stuff to talk about in caucus and
Yep.
probably see this article again. But for now, that's it for us. We seem to be getting down there as far as both articles going back and forth and unopened articles.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that we have fairly, like, I don't know, either if there's small differences or at least fewer differences in some of these articles. So it'd be nice if we're able to move some of these off today. So Kana, Michelle's ready at 1, is that correct?
Yeah, I was just looking, we're ahead of schedule, so we had scheduled to be done around noon with HCU presenting 23 and 17. And so next would be break at lunch and caucus, 1 o'clock. I guess I just want to verify if folks are good with that we just come back at 1 o'clock with the financials.
I mean, that would hopefully maybe
Give us
allow
some
a little bit more caucus time so that, you know, maybe we're able to do some work as a team and even respond on some of these.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me. If it's fine with my team, I mean, the only other thing I could envision is meeting a little bit earlier because we might have some counters or.
Yeah,
But
I mean, that's a fair point. If Michelle's ready at 1, maybe we try and get back together just a little in advance of that if there are counter proposals. What do you think of that, Kana?
That works for me.
like quarter till.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
works. Let's say 12:45.
Does that
That's
work with my
perfect.
team? Cool. Okay,
Right,
great.
so we'll take a break and come back at 12:45 to talk about anything that we want to kind of present, and then Michelle will be ready at around 1. How about for our team, we just go ahead and take a lunch break, and then why don't we plan on coming back around like 12:05?
Actually, do you think we can check in real quick as a team, Kana? Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, cool. All right, see you over there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys, see you soon.
Welcome, everybody. I am glad to be here with you again today to talk about financials as we continue to move through the bargaining process. Special thanks in advance to Hannah, who not just helps me navigate my slides, but also has provided a lot of support as we look at different scenarios that may be able to move our agreement forward. Some of this information is going to look very familiar to everyone, and I just want to keep anchoring back, especially for folks who are joining us who maybe haven't seen our work before, so they get a little bit of context as we're talking about our financial proposals. Go ahead, please, Hannah. So here's our agenda for today. I snipped off the first couple offer and counter offer, but still have us linked to our prior financial presentation. We're going to talk once again about our guiding principles and the approach, the district's approach to the offer. And here's where we're going to start looking at our counter offers and back and forth, and those values that each one of us are holding as we move through the process. And then we will present our current counter offer, and it's actually kind of a set of twins. Each one is similar in value, but represents a different approach to the 3-year picture for us. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so way back at the beginning of bargaining, I think it was about a year ago, we developed some bargaining principles, and these are the same principles that we use as we do our work with the Hillsborough Education Association. And of course, the part that I'm most focused on is being financially responsible. So that means that we plan a budget that's balanced every year. And we plan as best as we can for the economic conditions and factors that we know, and that we also have a longer view of our budget than just 1 year. And that's done all at the community level and with association partners as well. We want to look at long-term service stability levels. And so that's the consistency for our students and also for all of our staff. And in that, one-time funds shouldn't be used to meet ongoing commitments like salaries and benefits. They are one-time funds, and they are appropriated during the budget development process and how they will be used in the upcoming year. The short-term unsustainable solutions, they need to be dealt with in another way. And we don't want to set ourselves up for that. We also believe that we want to have a competitive employee compensation packages. Again, kind of born from our last bargain that we were able to come to a 3-year deal on. What was the desire to have a really comprehensive wage and benefit analysis done for all positions within the classified union. And we did that work, and we're able to bring that forward to inform some of our proposals that we were volleying back and forth now. That's a huge value, I think, for both sides. So we want to be sure that we're competitive. All right, that's should look like all old news, along with the district approach to the offer, really working hard to make sure that we provide transparency in our financial information, both at the community level, with the unions. We get a pretty good selection of information requests and try to respond to those in a way that is comprehensive, making time to talk them through. So transparency and financial information in that partnership was really important. We're looking for a 3-year deal that provides stability for all members and growth and wages and benefits, and gives folks the ability to plan for the future. We need sustainability again for the full period. We can't get out over our skis in an agreement that we're not going to be able to support in year 2 and 3. Definitely have some target to market and demand, and that comes back to probably the wage and benefit study and making sure that we're competitive. Being student-centered is critical for us. I know that everyone has felt a whole nother level of student needs this year, and what they need and how we support them is pretty important as we move through the bargaining process as well. The last piece is, we want to be timely. It's getting to be a little bit long now, but we definitely want to be able to have clear implementations worked out when we come into a mid-year settlement. How is that going to be applied, and what does that look like for every nuance of wages into the future, and what are those going to look and feel like to members? And just a reminder that this is a really non-traditional from the district perspective in terms of financials, because typically we would wait until the language was complete or near completion, starting to wrap up, and wait for the association to bring information forward about financials, and then we would begin countering at that time. And we kind of flipped that around with our first, we provided the first offer, and have been working from that ever since last fall. So that's just a different approach, with the understanding that there's a huge amount of pressure to get this thing wrapped up, and so that people are compensated where they should be for this current year. All right, I can't see anybody, so Hannah, you gotta give me the what if somebody needs assistance. So this is HCU. So just a little backstory here. Again, I trimmed off the first couple of volleys, but this gives context for what United is bringing to the bargaining table and asking for on behalf of members. We have the wage study adjustment is a priority, and it was moved from all 3 years up into year 1 and 2. So that's a tremendous value. There was a wage step advancement, which would change from 3% between each year to 4.2% each year. We have the general salary increase, which is formerly known as COLA, at 6% in year 1, and then 5 and 5. And you can see the totals on the slides there for what that could mean for certain folks. We have a 4.2% longevity step. And just again, for folks that are watching, I think that 4.2 is driven by the current step movement that our licensed staff get on their very limited salary schedule. They only have one schedule for all staff, and their step movement is 4.2%. So I think in our discussions, we have determined that that's what that's anchored back to. And as it comes with a significant cost, because we do have very many longtime employees in as members. We have the insurance cap increase of $50 a month, an opt-out increase, which is significant, $100 a month for folks who are opting out of the district's insurance plan. That is an increase from $200 a month to $300 a month. And the employees waive portion to pool. That's a little bit of a nuance of whether someone is opting out and waiving, and that will help the health of the insurance pool that subsidizes rates for families. We have a bit on Article 13, which is typically outside of the purview of the financials, except for there are a couple of asks that did have some dollars attached to them, as they're currently not paid holidays. We had Juneteenth for 12-month employees, which is just under $52,000 for a year. Juneteenth for 10-month employees was just over $225,000 per year. And then the day after Thanksgiving for 10-month employees was again $225,000. So the total of all of those combined, and the details are in the notes as I cleverly put here in green, that is added cost. So I include it here. We have the estimated value of the offer for each of years totaling $17 million. All right. That was counter offer 2. I'm not going to go through them quite as slowly. You're welcome. But now that we've gotten through the first one, you can kind of see the different parts and the years as they go across the columns and what they mean. HSD, our offer, we came back with recognizing that wage study adjustment in the first 2 years. There's a longevity bonus for top step in 2020, 21. So whoever was at top step at the end of last year would receive $500 this year, and then a retention bonus structure for years 2 and 3. We did come forward on the insurance cap increase. For the holidays, we have built that in for the 12-month employees, knowing that 10-month employee calendars typically wouldn't include June 19th is even a contract day or a work day. And so I think in our last session, we had quite a lot of conversation around Juneteenth, so I won't belabor that here. The insurance opt-out increased to $300. That's kind of an unexpected thing. So we gradually implemented it over the 3-year period to meet members where the ask was, so that by the end of the 3-year period, it will have fully gone from $200 a month to $300 a month. And the same methodology with the employee waive portion to the pool, so that we can plan for that added cost as we are well beyond halfway through year 1. And you can see the estimated value of that offer is just over $8.7 million. So we're still a little bit a ways away. Go ahead, Hannah. So this was our last time together. HCU brought back the counter offer 3. We have the wage study adjustment again. It all looks very similar. The only change, and please, HCU friends, correct me if I'm wrong, that I believe the only change to it was the longevity step. It went down marginally from 4.2% to 3%, and the rest remains the same. Was that a correct interpretation of the counter?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe so. It's a little interesting though. It looks like the dollar amount looks like it's higher than the first one. You might just check that figure. It's not, you know, I would assume it would at least go down a little.
Okay, I'll check that, Rob. Thank you. I have been swimming in it. So if there's things that pop out at you guys and maybe I haven't caught, or just let me know and I'll make those adjustments for our records moving forward. Okay, go ahead and advance. I added some reminders in here before we dig into our offers today, just kind of around member placement. That are 72% of, almost 73% of staff will receive a step and general salary increase. So that's the minimum that folks will receive as we settle the bargain, if they aren't already on the top step. You can see that just over 28% of staff are already on the highest step, regardless of their years in the district. They are maybe because of movement between rows or positions, 28% of folks are at the highest step. An estimated 45% of staff will receive an additional adjustment over years 2 and 3. That's foreshadowing there for the wage and benefits study. So that's an addition on top of those minimum things that would happen. So based on the information and the comparables of the wage study, folks are maybe eligible for an additional adjustment as well. And we do have some sample schedules included here. And then eligible bilingual staff, Spanish and Vietnamese speakers will receive an additional $1,200 per year if they complete an application and assessment process, which HR will be managing, and that will be paid through the student investment account as part of our well-rounded learning program. Okay. Okay. This, I just want to preface both 4A and 4B that these both have added value over our last offer, but more than that, they are a lot of moving around of deck chairs, so to speak. So trying to work within a limited amount of resources, but after some really great work and discussion with the HCU leadership team and just ongoing feedback from the bargain, trying to switch things around a little bit to maybe get us closer to where we want to be. So this first one, 4A, is called the top step. This is a concept too that may be coming forward out of the licensed agreement at some point. I don't know, can't really speak to that, but the wage study adjustment has been moved from year 1 and 2 to year 2 and 3. Part of my rationale for that is just because we're already so well into the year that implementation of that could be exceptionally challenging. Also, the savings from that was kind of reapplied on the green row for adding a top step in year 1 only that will continue forever. So that's giving not a new step each year of the agreement. It is a new step that people will be able to attain in their time at HSD. And we will drop that first step beginning in year 2. And that's kind of important once you dig into the salary schedules, that those future general salary increases are based on a higher level than the current step 1, and that benefits everyone. We have everything else here is the same. So I'm not gonna talk about it too much more, but you can see that there is an increase in this package, significant and long-term and ongoing. So that represents, I think, one set of philosophies around what's important to members. And if we can go ahead and move forward, Hannah. this is the slide that just talks about the wage study application, how it moved away from 3 years or the first 2 years. This is just a reminder that now it's going to be applied in year 2 and 3, and that the average increase is less than 6.22% for 45% of our staff. So by the end of our 3-year agreement period, the wage study adjustments would be fully implemented, which I think again is a goal for both of us to fill those chronically hard to fill positions. All right. The proposed top step. So step 10 for this, we would add step 10 for this current school year, and it would be added at 4%, which is very similar. The movement right now between 8 and 9 is a 4% increase, even though the rest of the steps are at 3%. So we're adding that new step at 4%. And then again, in year 2, that first step would drop off and there would be a new step 1. It would still be a 9-step schedule. So I think that that's important. I heard that question has come up a little bit, like, what does that look like? Is it adding a new step forever? No, essentially, current step 1 would become step 0 and drop off beginning next year. And the general salary increase would be calculated based off of step 2, current step 2, which again is a long time bonus for everyone, not bonus, benefit, wage increase. Okay, not a bonus. That's coming up next. Please advance. So here we have offer 4B, B for bonus, and we've worked in a couple different structures here. Again, knowing that this is not a final offer by any means, it's just another way of rearranging our resources to gain movement and traction and give members an idea of where they want to settle. So we have our wage study adjustment again moved to year 2 and 3, providing us some additional resources available in year 1 to plug into our scheme here. So we have a 2% longevity bonus at 10 years, and that's ongoing and would be paid at the end of the contract year based on wages that that person earned for the year. And that would be based on years of service to the district and not years in their position. So it does come with a pretty significant price tag. We have here, there's been off and on talk about a bonus. Other districts have done something like that. For us, it all kind of plays into the picture. So a one-time retention bonus in the first year would cost just under $214,000. And it would impact every member, regardless of position, regardless of FTE or hours. They would receive the same lump sum of money. And the rest of the picture looks the same. Again, this is just another scenario working within a similar amount of resources. Both of these offers today have movement. They have added value over our last offer. So I want folks to be assured of that, but we are coming to the end of our ability to continue to add based on the resources we have available. And as we get in the out years, they are becoming more and more challenging to plan for. So just want to get that out there. And let me see here. Go ahead and advance, Anna. This is the proposed bonus example. I kind of shared this already, but this is the narrative slide so that folks can reflect on that when I'm long gone off the screen. But employees with 10 years of service or more will receive 2% of their earnings at the end of the contract year. There's no way for us to pay that out in advance, not knowing how much they're going to earn for the year. So that's the way that will have to be implemented. The year 1 retention, year 1 only. Each member, again, will receive $125 on their final paycheck for this year only. That's how this is currently structured. All right, can we move ahead? We have some salary schedule examples. The whole top bullets are all related to the wage study. And when folks click into these salary schedules, the first year is going to look very straightforward. It's going to look just like our schedules do now, with the either the top step added or just the general salary increase applied. So that's that. But the methodology for both years 2 and 3 and those sample schedules, you're going to kind of have to have this slide handy to understand the color coding and just kind of navigate that. I feel for people trying to look at that, because it does change how the schedules look significantly. All right. I feel like we're getting close. My favorite slide, our next steps. We have a board meeting coming up. Again, this is a reminder of just kind of a timeline of things that are happening in the district. We bargain again on the 9th. We have a board work session and regular meeting on March 15th. There's only one meeting in March. So that's a pretty significant amount of time between meetings. We have March 16th and 30th again scheduled for bargaining. So we'll be doing getting closer and closer all the time. April, we have a work session on the 5th, regular meeting on the 26th, and a reminder that ratification by member vote and then the HSD board is what will activate payroll to implement our agreement for the year. So,
Michelle,
yes,
to clarify, we aren't bargaining on the 9th.
we are.
No, I think the schedule changed. So
Oh,
the
that's
6th,
what I, just not again until the 16th.
that's, yeah, I think, yeah, we had some other conflicts going on.
Okay, well, I take it back. We won't get a visit on the 9th. I apologize. It was still on my calendar, so I have a day here. So I'm available. There's that. Okay. And let's, any questions?
I just want to clarify something. So on the step 10, if you were to add the step 10, all the people that are stepped out would get that 4%, right? Even if you've been stepped out for 5-6 years, they would still get a 4% increase to their current salary, correct?
That is correct, Debbie. If they were on step 9 as they moved into this year and didn't receive a step movement, they would be eligible for that added step 10.
Okay, and the money for the retention bonus, the 125, is, where is that money coming from? Is that money coming from the ESSER funds that you're able to use, or is that coming from somewhere else?
No, the ESSER funds are already spent on other items for this year. And I believe that I provided that information to you. There's nothing budgeted for bonuses or anything like that for this year in those funds. So this is part of our bargaining contingency, which we did add savings so far from this year for positions that have gone unfilled, the hard to fill positions. So it is general fund add.
Okay, because I mean, yes, I appreciate the work you did on that, but the 125 is kind of a slap in the face. I will say that. You have Salem Kaiser that just offered their employees $22.50, every employee. Other districts around have done, way more, 125. Our people that they're not going to go for that. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, I am just being honest here. That
I appreciate that, Debbie. This is in there to provide some information to you guys to counter back with us. I can tell you that each $100 for all employees costs about $168,000. And it is not in our budget to pay for it out of ESSER funds this year. So those are probably some, I don't know, counterpoints to what you're sharing. I do feel like regardless of the amount, that some folks are going to continue to feel undervalued just due to the stress and pressure and conditions of the last year and a half. And for that, I'm sorry.
And I understand that. I'm just saying what our people see around us and what's happening when you offer the 125 is a kick in the gut. So I just want to make sure that that is heard well.
The other thing too, you were talking about some of the sort of like vacancy money. I don't know if that like needle has moved at all, because we had that discussion a while back, you know, and it was kind of based on the, I believe of the snapshot of like what the vacancy rate was now. I don't know if there's any like movement in that as we kind of go further into the year and continue to have real staffing issues.
Yeah, I can check into that. I think one of the challenges that we have with the additional leave that's been made available to staff that is paid, that any savings that we would see due to those gaps are being, they're being used in terms of leave and paying people to cover for people who are on leave. So this has been just an unusual year for experience. I'm happy to go back and run those numbers again for an update. But I would say that I think the savings that you're thinking for vacant positions may be considerably less than what we have actually realized. My cash flow doesn't say that there's that much.
Okay, yeah, we're just trying to follow up on stuff we've been hearing from members. So just so it's clear, you know, this concept you have of moving the you know, moving the wage study increase from year 2 and 3 for 12-month employees, that would take place in like July 1st, beginning of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
And then for those coming back in the fall, it would be when they come back.
Yeah, that is correct.
You know, our members are always interested in sort of like what's retro, what's not. I mean, according to this proposal, from what I see, it would be cost of living adjustment, the step, the sort of additional step in that would that also be retro?
There's
Or?
gotta,
The added top step, if that
Yeah,
were the avenue, yes, that would be, but for everyone else, they should have received their step movement for the year.
Okay, no, I meant for that additional step. I just want, you know, anybody else listening to this to kind of understand the mechanics of it.
The other piece that would be have some retro application is any adjustment to insurance cap, because that could provide an additional bump depending on how it's administered. In the past, the licensed union directed those funds back into their insurance pool, or it could be a retro deduction offering through pay for folks.
Melody's had her hand raised, and then I think
Then Kira has hers up as well. So I have to start off by saying, yeah, that 125, I appreciate all the work that you've done on this, but that really was a punch gut, and it's with the districts around us. We were asked to wait for bargaining to look at retention and look at bonuses, but 125, I don't know how it's going to work. Our members are not going to go for it. Our funds are already blowing up from people that are watching. But I have a question about that extra step, which again only impacts 28%. That means that 70-some% of our members would not be impacted by that until they reach that top step, which will be a year longer to get to. If somebody's been here for 12 years and they change positions because we've been told that that's how we can increase our pay is to change positions. But now they're on step 4 or 5, but they're not on step 10. So they are not going to see any sort of an additional increase, even though they've been here for 15+ years. Is that correct?
Yeah, but they would have received the step advancement that the folks on the top step wouldn't have received. So depending on where they are, that was either 3% or 4% step movement that again, the folks that were stepped out at the top wouldn't have received. So that combined with the general salary increase, which right now on the table is at 2.5%, that's 5.5%. Plus, hopefully there was a wage increase with that job change. I don't know how to soften that anymore, and I don't know what the experience is, but I definitely appreciate your guys' feedback on the bonus structure. Again, of putting the deck chairs out there. I expect that you guys will counter with something.
Yeah,
I
we will.
do hope that we are making movement and putting things out that members find value in. In a lot of ways, we've done that already, and that's exciting. So we'll continue to move forward. And just for membership at large, I want you to know that your leadership team, they are exceptional. They ask me great questions all the time. They put in the extra time and work with me to make sure that we are examining carefully our approach to this and that we get it right. So I want to show appreciation to the team. I don't think they have any more extra time than I do. And I think that's awesome.
Well, we appreciate it too, and certainly we'll be countering. But I think it's this kind of like, when you start reaching a certain point in bargaining around economics, which is always challenging. I think starting to get creative is usually the way that we figure out a way to get to the end. So we appreciate it, Michelle.
I want to make sure that Kara has a chance to share.
Oh yeah, sorry, Kara.
I think Melody asked the question I was going to ask. I was just going to point out, I see how that top step is a great asset for some of our stepped out employees, but I don't really see what benefit that is to those of the 72% who are still in their wage steps. So.
Yeah, again, I would just reiterate that they received steps when top folks didn't. So just another approach, I guess. Thank you, guys. I know we have more to talk about today.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the comparisons with bonuses that other districts are giving and comparing that to the $125. Those bonuses that you're looking at, like with Salem Kaiser, those are done in isolation. So they're not done combined with a wage study increase and a new top step and a COLA. They're single item pieces. If you were to take the cash value of all those other pieces we're offering, we could propose much higher one-time bonus, but you wouldn't get those permanent increases to the salary schedule. So I don't think you can compare those, except, to the extent that they're part of a complete bargaining offer. Again, you could strip away the wage study piece, you could strip away the new step, you'd be left with a much larger pool of money, and you could give one-time bonuses the size that you're referring to, like in Salem. But that's a single piece. It's not combined up with salary schedule increases. And then just a quick comment on the new top step not impacting a certain percentage of the workforce. It's always a challenge for us to direct. We have limited resources, and trying to figure out where to direct them within the scope of an overall economic proposal is something of a challenge, because you do show some priorities, or some groups tend to be impacted more than others. That's just kind of the nature of how it works. Because if you put more, if you didn't do that new top step and you said, devote that money towards more of the across the board salary increase that affects everybody, then the folks who are at the top don't get step, the same way that everybody's not at the top is getting step as part of their increase. And the folks at the top then only get whatever that COLA or GSI is. And so then what we hear is, well, that's not honoring the folks at the top. What about those folks who don't get step? They're relegated to only getting the GSI. So what are you doing for them? So it is a shifting of resources. We look for messaging about priorities from your group. The message that we can't respond to is our priority is everything. because we have to figure out where to devote limited resources. So I think what we feel we've not seen from your group yet is any real sense of prioritization, because it continues to be a proposal that's exceedingly costly and hits every single area. And that's what we're not going to be able to work with or satisfy. We're always trying to figure out how can we hit the points that they're bringing up. We heard a lot about our employees who had been here a long time, honoring that seniority, honoring, commitment to the district. So that's why you saw in this proposal, one that would devote a fair amount of resources to folks who were stepped out in response to that messaging. So that's why you saw a shift away from immediate implementation of the wage study and devoting those resources to the folks who were at the top.
I think Melody was going to say something. She had her hand raised. I just want to make sure. Melody, were you going to share something?
So I'm getting an impact. Oh, well.
We're losing you.
You can hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay. The wage study only impacts a few of our members, like 50-some% of our members. And of those 50-some%, some only get a few pennies and some get up to a few dollars. So it's not a big impact, and it's only a 1% change in the budget from our understanding, if we're correct on remembering that. And seniority is very important to us. We want the people that have been here for years to see that they're appreciated. We have got a large number of people, members, that do not feel valued in this. And this is the message that I have been repeating over and over and over again, because it's the message that we get from our members. They don't feel valued. They don't feel like they want to stay here. They don't like these proposals. 94% of the people that answered a survey of ours said that they did not like the proposals that were coming. There was also a large number that have to choose between food and a bill because of their pay. They're just not feeling the value in this. And it is our job to advocate for them. And 125, if we took this back to them right now, if we were to vote, I don't think they'd go for 125. And if we try to tell them, say, well, we can take the 6% that's coming from the wage study, I don't know where they would fall with that. I need to ask them. I need to have a meeting with them and ask them. But not all of them are going to get the 6%, and they have to wait till next year and the year next to get even half of that if they were to get any of it. So we will take your proposal back, and thank you for your proposal. But we're going to have to look at it. And Brian, we will look at a direction of where we want to put more of our priorities. But one of our biggest priorities is seniority and value for our members. We don't want to see them go to Beaverton. We don't want to see them go to Woodburn or Forest Grove. We want to see them stay here. We want them in our schools. We want them to be working side by side with us. But I'm not sure at 2.5%. We were getting phone calls yesterday. You're not taking 2.5%, are you? He says, well, we're still at the table. We're still talking. So that's all I'm going to say about this, because I can continue on. And but we will be talking as a team, and we will be looking at numbers, and I will be having a meeting with my members, and I will be using all the resources that I have available to me and my team, or our team, and we'll be coming back with a counter.
Yeah, again, and just to clarify, in our proposal A, every single person would be getting an increase this year of somewhere between 5.5% and 6.5%, because every single person would get either a 3% or a 4% step plus a 2.5% GSI. So every bargaining unit member would see an increase of somewhere between 5.5% and 6.5% under our proposal A.
I get that. I think I want to say this, you know, I know there's a lot of issues when it comes to money, but I just want to remind the reason we're in this situation is we had been struggling for so long and not getting adequate COLAs that has put us in this spot where now it's snowballing and you have the economy that's jumping up. You know, when parents and you know, this, think about this, this is kids that you serve in the community. Their parents have to decide whether they pay a bill or eat food, and that's pathetic. That's sad.
Yeah, we're trying not to put ourselves in a position where people don't have a job, or at least not a job with the district, because again, our resources are limited. This is not a situation where the district wins by keeping money from employees. This is based on money coming in and landing at something that's sustainable and not irresponsible. So the district could spend itself into a reduction in force. But that's not going to help kids either. And it's not going to help employees because some of them will lose their job. Their workloads will be, others who don't lose their jobs, their workload will be higher. We'll have less services for kids. So this is a situation where we have limited resources. We're not a private enterprise. We're not trying to distribute, dividends to stockholders or something. We have limited resources that are given to us by the state. It's how we divide those up and spending them in a way. Michelle has an obligation to have a balanced budget. That is the law. Every year she has to present a balanced budget to the board. So we have to spend within our means. Sorry, Michelle, you had your hand up.
No, I was just going to invite you guys, once Hannah shares those slides, there is one in there again that has links to sample salary schedules. So you can see the actual they're probably not perfect, which is why I put sample on them, but they should give a pretty good indication of what the change per hour would be for members in different positions. I encourage you to look at those. It's not insignificant. That is all. That is all. That information is in there.
We appreciate that, Michelle. Yeah, and we'll be working on our counter. Do we want to shift gears real quick and just knock out a few of these ones that we as a group kind of went through? Is my team okay with that? Might be good to kind of end on an up note, and then we'll
Yeah, let's do that.
okay. So Kira, are you able to present this stuff?
Yeah, what do you want to start with?
I guess with 9.
Okay, hold on.
I mean, we're basically ready to TA 9, so I don't know if you have to actually present it because it's
Okay.
we're not proposing any changes for 9, and we appreciate the work that you guys have done on that, and so we felt like that one was ready to TA. But maybe you could pull up the phone MOA. So we took a look at this. We don't really have a problem with including in the contract. We think it's a good idea. There is this provision in here that says if the district raises the stipend for its non-classified employees, it will raise the stipend paid to classified employees to an equivalent amount. You guys had struck that. It seems like it's not a bad thing to include. It was included before, and if you guys did raise that amount, obviously we'd probably want it to. Was there a specific reason why you guys didn't want to include that kind of going forward?
Not really. I think we were just striking out the bulk of this. I don't know that we specifically talked about that piece. My understanding, Con, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the super techs are the other group that would typically get or some people in that group would get a phone stipend. Is that right?
Yeah, there's also some licensed folks that are itinerant and and our administrators as well.
Well, this is now in your court. We just think it would, it might make sense to include that. My assumption would be that the district would probably do that anyway.
Mhm.
But it was in there before and it seemed like it was worthwhile to kind of throw, to keep in there.
Yeah.
So there's that. So that's back for you guys as a counter. I guess the one on retirees, I don't think there's any reason for you to pull that up because we're ready to TA it too. It makes sense to go forward. At least, until the law changes. And then if you could pull up the intern one, if you would, real quick, Kira, be much appreciated. So yeah, like we discussed, actually, Kira, the only problem I see with this one is, well, so we wanted to strike the Portland Community College language. I think that makes sense to everyone. We like interns, you guys like interns, and if it's gonna, if it's gonna help the district and help some people get their certs or whatever it is, we think it's great. But because it's still a MOA, Kira, you could probably, I don't think we should propose striking the parties agree to the following parameters. I think that got kind of lumped in there. I meant to mention that before, my bad. So yeah, so our proposal is basically to strike that, but it sounds like you guys,
I think we're
I
fine.
think it was Brian's idea, so.
Yeah, I think we'd be ready to sign that one.
Okay, cool. Article 24, we're still working on. And then the summer work one, we just kind of ran out of time. So we'll get those back to you soon now.
Thank you guys for your work on that. I really appreciate it. Nice to have at least 3 things that we were able to make some tentative agreements on.
Okay, so Hannah, you can get those ready for signature. I can't remember how I think you send those to me, don't you? I don't remember. Okay.
And then Article 4 is in your guys' court, correct? Okay.
Yeah, it's the union rights one. I think it was.
Oh, we still have that one open?
Yeah.
Well,
way
I mean,
back
what?
from
Yeah,
May.
I know. We scratched our heads a little bit about it too. I mean, and we were looking back. I think we had made a proposal. You guys had countered it, but I think it was like, it wasn't the MOU version of it or whatever. It was, or no, we didn't. It wasn't actually an MOU. We rebargained that article because, remember way back, seems like decades ago, when we bargained about HB 2016,
Mhm.
we had renegotiated that article based on it. And I think that there were elements of that was in your proposal that had come from the current contract language prior to renegotiating it around HB 2016. So it led to maybe some confusion and it probably just got lost in the shovel. It happens.
Yeah, I don't have any recollection of it, so we must not have talked about it for a while.
Yeah, I think it's been since May.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then obviously we have 23 and 17 on our side of the table now.
Yep.
Okay, and we meet
So
again.
these should be down to the wire, right? I mean, like we're almost done with proposals, correct? Just what we're shooting back and forth right now? Does
Yeah,
that-
I didn't even have, because I wasn't even factoring in Article 4. I had, and maybe Hannah can correct me if I'm wrong, I thought this was like a full listing of what we had still open. Hannah, is that correct?
Yeah, just about. We have 4 and 2 that are kind of the ongoing ones.
4 and 2, and we just resolved 9. Article 13 still open.
Yep, the last thing is Article 32, which is duration and termination, which will be at the end.
We have to wait.
Okay.
Yeah, definitions I think was still kind of out there, but basically finished. We just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything else to throw in there, and then
And then whichever articles the financial pieces will impact.
yeah, it's insurance and compensation, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we've certainly gone through the contract with a fine tooth comb. spend a year bargaining, it's, you get a lot of language work done.
So I show us meeting on the 16th, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay.
So
Okay,
week after next. Oh, I see what you're saying. So we don't meet on the 2nd.
no,
And we'll be from 10 to 2 on.
All right, cool. Yeah, maybe next time around we take stock of where we're at, try to think of, well, let's talk about that when we get to it. Okay,
we
cool.
have we have the 30th set as a date also.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's on my calendar.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Yep, we'll see you
Thank
next
you.
time. Hey, district team, pop back into our caucus real quick if you could.